fellow artist. It is Mrs. Simpson, and for this demonstration video, I am going to show you how to start and complete your balance sketchbook assignment. So for balance, there are many different types of balance that an artist might use in order to show a unified work of art. First, we need to know a good definition for balance, and that is the visual distribution of weight through color, texture, space. Balance helps make an image feel stable. So it's going to tie your work together and it's going to visually make your work seem finished and stable. So there are some great examples here of elements of art, some elements of art that help to create multiple different kinds of balances. For instance, color and value. Bright colors and dark values can add weight to objects, so that will help to create this visual weight. Texture, the way the surface quality looks to the touch, or the way it works, an implied texture. So adding texture can also add a weight to an object. Size and quality. Large objects may feel heavier. Multiple objects can balance larger objects. We have shape as another element of art, and shapes and more complex shape will appear heavier. The orientation or the direction in which your elements of art like shape may be placed. So a diagonal object will have more visual weight than a horizontal or a vertical object. And then position and isolation. An isolated object will appear heavier, and the further out from the center, the heavier an object will appear. So all of these are really great tips in which you can use to help to create balance in your artwork. We're going to focus on these four, and we're going to demonstrate these four types of balances that we see in art. And one is an asymmetrical balance. We have a symmetrical balance, a radial balance, and these are three that we've talked about in class. And the last balance we have here is crystallographic balance. Say that 10 times fast. And a crystallographic balance is one where we're creating repeating patterns. I like to kind of think of this type of balance as a kaleidoscope. If you ever look inside a kaleidoscope where you are seeing repeated patterns and it all has the same visual weight and there's really no focus. So these are the four types of balance we are going to practice here for this sketchbook assignment. So what do you need? You definitely need a pencil for this, and you need an eraser. You also need your printout or a blank piece of paper to copy what you see here on a blank piece of paper for submission. You should definitely have this reference sheet open on your computer. You don't need to print this, but you should definitely have it open because everything you see on this reference sheet is exactly what we're going to be transferring onto your actual sketchbook worksheet. So in the first box, and you can see I already got mine started for time, it's asking to create a design that reflects an asymmetrical balance. Well, what is an asymmetrical balance? We need to come back here to the reference sheet for that vocab word. An asymmetrical balance, also known as an informal balance, it's created by having a different object on either side, but we still have the same visual weight. So it's the same visual balance. So it's still considered balanced. However, the objects on both sides are not identical or the same. So what does that look like? So you can see here on mine, I started to draw just a little sketch of a landscape here, and I'm going to finish it now. So anything you put here where the objects on either side are different or not nearly the same is going to create an asymmetrical balance. A really good idea for all of these is to refer to what's here on the handout, but also to Google search, examples of different types of balances like asymmetrical. The next one here is a symmetrical balance. And for symmetrical, you can see that I got started and I'm going to do an example of a butterfly. Symmetrical balance is when both sides are the same or nearly the same. So again, if we come back here, it's also known as a formal balance created by having a mirror image. So if our facial features are a symmetrical balance, if we would cut a line down the middle of our face, both sides are a mirror image of one another. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to repeat what I have on this side on the other side to create these butterfly wings. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm actually going to cheat a little and I'm going to show you how to do this. I suggest for symmetrical balance, whatever you come up with, you can draw it on one side and then you can transfer it really easily by taking a piece of paper, laying it over top, and I'm tracing. I'm pressing down pretty hard here. See how I'm like really loosely getting that outline there? It's not perfect, but I want this because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over this way. I'm going to line it up to where I need it. And then I'm going to transfer it on the other side of my paper. And by doing that, I'm just scribbling over my pencil marks. So when I take it off, I have that identical transfer, okay? So that's a nice little cheat that you can do on yours. And there I have a symmetrical balance. So a butterfly is a really great example for that, where you cut it a vertical line down the middle and both sides are the same or nearly the same. So there we have our two first examples, asymmetrical balance and a symmetrical balance. And you can notice the big difference there between those types of balances. All right, so for our next balance here, we're going to take a look at radial balance. And a radial balance is when an object radiate out from a central point. So that's what we're going to do here. How I got started was like drew a circle here. I just found a circle. I had some lotion in my desk and I just put it down like this and I traced the circle. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to create this radial balance of, again, a design radiating out from the center. So I'll do that now. So there we have a radial balance, which is just a simple flower design. And you can see here how everything is coming out from the center in a circular pattern. So that is radial balance. All right, so our next balance is going to be the crystallographic balance. And again, this is a new balance that we don't really talk about in class, but I think it is a fun one to explore here. And like I said earlier, I think of this one like a kaleidoscope because what it is creating of a repeating pattern with the same visual weight. It has no focal point. And there's a big difference between this type of balance and this type of balance. With a radial balance, we do have a focal point. Our eyes are drawn in towards the center. With the crystallographic balance, there is no focal point. So it is this continuous pattern. So you can see I already got started. And what I'm actually going to do here is I am going to use one of the techniques discussed at the top that can influence the balance. And I am going to influence this type of balance with color. So I'm going to use some brighter colors here to influence this type of balance and this pattern design. All right, so our last part of our sketchbook here then is to create a work of art that is well balanced using at least 3 of the balance influencers covered on the front of the worksheet. So if we come back here to the front of the worksheet, these are the influencers. Balance can be influenced by these techniques here. So you can use anything from color to value, texture, the size and the quantity of something, the position, the orientation of which one is placed, whether it's horizontal, vertical, and shape. So I already actually started this, and what I started doing here is I started to keep in mind the types of balance. I wanted to use some of the techniques from each of the balances. Overall, my little work of art here is an asymmetrical balance. That is because if I were to put a line down the center of this, you can see that both sides right now are not the same or equally the same. Then what I started to do is I started to use this pattern, this repeated pattern down here, to create almost like blades of grass along the bottom to help unify my work of art. Because although I'm creating a sense of balance here, I'm still creating a little work of art that has to be unified. And that was our sketchbook from last week. So what I did was then I started to create this little dandelion here. I was gonna have the wind blowing its seeds through the air. So, did I use 3 of the influencers on the front cover? I would not say this is done. I'm going to continue to go back in here and work this using value, going from dark to light shades. And I want to do that within my blades of grass down here. All right, so here is my well-balanced work of art here. So I did show an asymmetrical balance, and then the 3 different balance enforcers that I used from the reference guide was a color. Well, I didn't use color, but what I did use was value of going from dark to light shades. So I use that, that's 1. Another thing that I used was texture. I created texture with the way that I was applying the value within these blades of grass, but also the texture on my dandelion as well, with that stippling technique. And then I also showed multiple different types of shapes. I also showed orientation. A diagonal object has more visual weight than a horizontal. I have the diagonal, the horizontal blades of grass along the bottom, and the diagonal drawing the eyes upward with the dandelion. I have position in here and isolation. All of these things tie in to help to create a well-balanced work of art. So down here, basically, you're drawing whatever you want, but you want to make sure it is a complete work of art that is filling the space appropriately, as well as keeping in mind these balance influencers and the types of balance that we use and picking one of these balance to focus on. When you're done, you want to make sure you sign it. Take a picture of it, scan it, and submit it to the Dropbox for grading. Most importantly, good luck and have fun, and I can't wait to see your finished pieces.